It's not there. Copy. Paste. Is it too long? So 1 second. Something typed in here. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Let's see, already got that in there, so let's try that again. All right, where were we? Ooh. Let's get that over here. There we go. Where was I? This in front. Just want to put some more kind of particular details. What do we got here? Not you. Wanted you. Brush. Let me know if that works. I was testing it out. It's for Infinite Painter, but I'm not so good at all the digital marketing stuff, so I'm very, very slow. And I forget to do it. Oh, it's deep? Huh. Who knows? I can only hear inside my head, right? So unless I'm like listening to my own voice. Um, Keeps my students paying attention in class. Sounds like I'm deadly serious. So I am on YouTube and Twitch and Instagram for those asking. Get the full view over on those other two. I guess there's a way of streaming to Instagram from your computer now, which I haven't looked at yet. Got some kind of email about it, but I need to look into that. There's a bunch of things I'm trying to get kind of caught up on in the new year after, a crazy last year. New university, new job, new city, new state. So I even did a small update to my website with some of the 3D sketches I've done over the last few years. I moved from Sarasota, Florida, to Richmond, Virginia. I was teaching at Ringling College of Art and Design, and it's a great school, private university. But honestly, the weather in Florida was just killing me. I had to get out of there, and I found some new. It's recommended that I apply at this school I'm currently at. Bosch is having trouble with the wire. And and the drawing. This is part of a larger concept project I'm working on called Bramble. I'm thinking about doing. I was going to do portfolio project, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I should do an art book, which I probably still will do. And then, I also thought, well, what if? So I've been looking at a lot of this in the last, few years, especially. But did a graphic novel, which I've never done before. So it would take me probably at least through the end of the year to prep, proper story writing and story structure, character writing, and dialogue, the things that I'm not as familiar with. And it's kind of outgrowth of me trying to improve some skills that I thought could be better, with especially with the new job being what it is. I'm teaching professor of concept art here. I wanted to improve my character and expression drawing, and so I've been working hard at that over the last few months. So I always feel pretty good about environments. So, I've been doing a lot of research to prep properly. So it would be something I'm definitely in for. I want to do like a 10-page kind of got the opening worked out, so I want to do that as like a 10-page thing. See what I see how it looks, see how it gets works, along with writing out the rest of the story, and get some feedback from people I know on it. And that will help me prep for that. Make sure it's something that would actually work for me, not just a big speculative venture. Something I could actually deliver on. So, um, so I know a few comic book people, published ones out there. So I can probably pester some of them. And they know more people, so we'll see. Um, but I feel like it's something I could do. It's something I thought about doing since I was a kid. I just never liked what I saw in terms of the opportunities for a long-term career in the traditional comic book market. But I see a lot of interesting things happening on the crowdfunding side. So we'll see. That's a good little bit of detail. I'll try this. I think this goes on, yep, on that layer. So why not do a little more? That's what I say. Well, I don't know. It'd be through probably one of the crowdfunding sites, unless I can figure out how to set up on my own. I know there's some ways of doing the crowd, Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whoever, a chunk of change. I can set things up there, but we'll see. It might be worth doing on the other sites first. If there's just because it'd be easier. So we'll see. Well, this piece right here is kind of a kind of say the word. It's like an inspiration piece. So some things I've been working on, I wanted to incorporate them into one big picture to kind of get a larger view of how things might look. And so that's what this piece is for. This is really just kind of a ballpoint pen drawing right now type of thing. And then test it out with some of these other fancier brushes I've been working on. Well, I'd probably do the whole book in traditional media, except for the coloring, lettering. Probably at least do the art book, but I may do if I can get the comic strip to work the way I want, then, or the comic book rather, the graphic novel, then I'll do that too. I have to refill this tea quicker. Voice is still a little wrecked from being so sick, but get a view of the city here. All right, how are we thinking about these foreground stuff? Anything else I want to add on? Good afternoon, everybody. Only one way to find out. Living, I'll change the brush size by fingertips. Whoop, up and down. Can also change opacity the same way, just going left and right. Very handy, I think. Right? Oh yeah. I think on the I don't know if you get the YouTube Prime or whatever, it should let you watch without ads. All right. Well, no. If YouTube would probably play ads. I think you picked up YouTube Premium, right? Didn't you say you picked that up recently? Let's see. That dog cam around a little bit. Oh, there's like 3 people over on Twitch. They should say hi. Alright. I was thinking about putting something like right here or something, but we'll see. I think you got enough to look at in there. Alright, I wanted to re-ink this part because I did ink this before, but I've done some changes that I want to keep. So I'm going to stick that below there. Add a new layer there, just one though. And got my little brush kit up. Put that on top. And I'm going to put that white layer. All right. I see. Well, I would say YouTube is likely to play ads of some kind there. Can I pull this out? I guess not. So this is kind of your standard inking brush here. And we've got some Sumi type brushes. This is the one I've been, not you. Using, no, not this one either, but I like this one too. Well, that is, it's supposed to be one giant kind of tree. Or one giant plant or something. So, I want to see how much meaningless detail I can shove into this thing. A lot of the can pack a lot of detail into things as long as you're willing to set up the values correctly. You just have to find out, right? Good. What do you got over here? Great, making it hard to see what I want to see. So we'll get rid of it. I've used Procreate since pretty early days. Uh, I like Infinite Painter because it has some interesting features that Procreate doesn't have, others don't have. So like it's got more perspective grids, and it has a tool in there where the shape tool. So if you want to draw like a circle or an oval, it will auto adjust that circle shape or square or whatever other shape you want to draw to match the perspective. So if I turn on the stuff here, the grid's on, I think. Let's just make sure it's on. Yeah, it's on. Now if I were to go and grab circle tool and draw it in perspective, it's going to adjust, and then I can also move it around and it will change its shape based off of where it's at in the space, which I think is pretty cool. Also does this kind of interesting thing with, of course, you can just draw regular lines and it will follow the perspective like the other ones. What you can do is you can draw a line and you can change, sorry, let me get at that line, hold and straight. Actually, let's turn off the perspective. Here we go. Hold it straight, hold the line. You can change it like you do other ones, but this one you just have to tap the line. You don't have to go to a separate button. But you can also, in that state, change its size just by moving your fingers up and down. So it does a lot of interesting stuff. I get why people like Procreate. I like it. I use it. But I've definitely focused a lot more on this application the last few years. Brushes work very similarly. I think there are a few kind of settings that I would kind of wish were in here but aren't in here for brushes. But and none of these applications are very expensive, so it's always worth, picking them up. I think this one's free to try. I bought it a long time ago, so um, so I've had it for a while. I did a live stream for them once at one of the Lightbox events a few years ago. For me, it is. For my students, university and some of the online course stuff I have a whole process actually for creating notan shapes and then selecting from those to make your composition. And one of the things I've found when I've implemented that in my students, whether it's the juniors I have here at Virginia Commonwealth University, or the freshmen that I had at Ringling last year when I was teaching in Florida, is that by doing that, it instantly improved the quality of their compositions. And so I can see other ways of working, but excuse me. but but I'm definitely a very shape-based artist, anyways. But kind of seeing the effects that it had on them really reinforced its importance to me. And I tend to respond really well to work that has a strong kind of shape-based approach, whether it's, like Magnolia or others. I like that Notan style. As for Bramble, it's been kind of sketching a lot for city stuff, so I thought I'd do kind of one large piece. None of these things are like a definitive thing. It's kind of just help me see how things fit together, if it'll really work the way I want it to. A number of years ago, I did a piece for a company, and they kind of had me do these larger line art pieces just to see if their world idea kind of worked visually. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And I want to do, something more finished anyway. I've been doing lots of sketches and prep stuff, so. And I've been doing all this, traditional media stuff, which I, generally prefer in a lot of ways, but I wanted to see how some things I've been practicing translate to the digital realm. Wish I could double tap my ink drawings when I'm making a mistake in real life. Sometimes I found myself doing that by accident. Grab who I wanted it to. There we go. Yeah, one of the things with the Procreate is different here is like Procreate, you draw a curve, and you put it down. You can do this, but if you want to edit it, you have to hit a button. And this one, you just tap the line. You can move things around. You can also edit that line. Try that again. Maybe I have to do a more complicated curve. If I do a more complicated curve like this, I can add points in, and I can change them to like an angled point, so it doesn't have to stay straight. So that gives you kind of extra options. Now gouache, I love gouache. It is great to work with. I like to do landscape painting outside in it. I should do some finished stuff, and it's been a while since I've done that, but I've done more finished pieces in gouache, like for illustrations and things like that. Yeah, the water media can be tricky, partially just because of the way it darkens, which actually it's not darkening. What happens is that you're actually lightening it when you add water, because the water um, reflects light into it. And so if you've worked with watercolor or gouache or acrylic, everyone always complains, that it dries darker than when you painted it. But really, when you were painting it lighter than it would be if it dried. And so partially is just keeping that in mind. So I usually want to use a minimal amount of water unless you're doing like a general wash. But I always try to kind of keep it slightly wetter when I'm working than it was in the tube. And that's kind of the consistency I like, unless I'm doing a wash. Treating it almost more like a watercolor. But typically I like to keep it just a little bit wetter so it just moves around more easily. The nice thing about working with rogue wash too is you can get it wet again and soften edges or remove things or pull it out. It's almost kind of like somewhere between oils and acrylics. So that's the consistency I like. Um, a lot of times it's just getting used to it, using it over and over and over again. Well, it depends. So if you want to do light to dark, that usually implies you're using it in a more transparent way. So that just means you're treating it more like watercolor. I think it's easier to go from dark to light. So usually when I'm setting up a gouache picture, is I will kind of do a wash with the gouache. So that's usually matches the overall kind of mood or value structure that I see in front of me. Again, I mostly use it when I'm outside, landscape painting. So I'll look at it, if things are kind of more green and brown or orange and blue or whatever, I'll make a mixture that kind of works with that and lay that out really quick and very transparent. And then from there, then I'll set up the dark kind of patterns, the darker value patterns in it. It's almost more like I'm painting with oils. And I'll try to set that up all over the place as much as I can. So I'll do that. And then I like a pattern of kind of working back to front. So you can overlap what's behind through the painting. So that way, you're able to kind of paint over or on top of the what's behind. So that's normally how I work with it. And then I kind of do them in passes. So I'll work back to front and it's working like visually, the drawing's kind of mostly there. And then I'll back up and do it again. And then usually one more time to kind of refine everything. Well, if you're having trouble with skin color, I always recommend the Zorn palette, Zorn. He used bone black and vermilion and a yellow ochre. So these days I would recommend, like cadmium red, yellow ochre, and ivory black and white. You can paint any skin tone with that, dark or light or in between or whatever. And it kind of gets you used to working with warms and cools that you hear about a lot, and along with value patterns. The other thing you can do if you're working from, say, a photograph or you've got the time with somebody, is to do a grid painting, where basically you put out a grid on your paper, whatever size it is. Let's say at least, 15 by 20 or whatever, as a squared grid. And what you do is you fill in each square with only one color. So either it's an average of what you see, it's the exact color, or something that influences the colors next to it. And so if you kind of stick with those three options, it'll help you kind of pick a color for the area. So a lot of times it's the hard part, is just like picking one single color to work with, because you start to look more closely at things, you start to see a lot more information that's actually useful sometimes. And so having a limited palette and then limiting what you can do with those colors will help you out. And then when you go to actually do a painting of the actual person, you can put down a patch of color and another patch of color next to it, and then blend them together. And that can help with that problem. So, thanks. That's a general process I've used a lot of times in classes I've taught in the past. This is Infinite Painter. Yeah, it's a great app. I think it's free to try. It's not very expensive. I think 10 or 15 dollars. It had some distinguishing features that, say, Procreate doesn't have or Photoshop doesn't have, that I like. Especially if you want to draw like inorganic things like buildings or vehicles or robots. So give me the arc I want. There it goes. Like you can change the stroke size you make just with the movement of your fingers. Um, Yeah, they're for Infinite Painter. I've been debating. I think maybe so I want to release a brush set, so that's kind of a free release that gets you on the email list to let you know when that actually releases. But I may make versions for Procreate and Photoshop later on. So I've got a bunch of brushes in Procreate that I made that I kind of ported over here. So it'd just be a matter of going through and finalizing them a little bit. And taking the time to sit down and do that, but I figured I would kind of perfect how these ones work. I'll go into all the settings. Yeah, there's quite a few of them. Make sure it all works here, and then do a set for like Procreate and Photoshop that are that work in a similar way if I can. There are some things in here like at Procreate and Photoshop they don't have these knife brushes, so I'd have to make a different kind where well, there's like these shape brushes they have in here where you can draw. I made these, but you can draw a shape and they'll put a pattern down. So I made like a screen tone thing, right? So I can slap down the screen tones. And I know Clip Studio has brushes that you can do that with, but not Procreate or Photoshop. So, and then I also made these kind of flick brushes. Yeah, just if you type the word brush into the comments, it'll DM you and get you set up to get the free brushes and onto that list. I don't even know what to charge. I need to see what people charge for a brush pack. So, but yeah, I should send you a message that will then get you on that list. I was testing it today. I'm not really good at the whole online marketing thing. Like I've got a teaching site with lots of tutorials on perspective drawing and ink drawing, things like that, and I'm terrible at marketing it. So I've got like 5 subscribers on it. This is a flick brush. So the idea here is that, like those thick to thin lines you'll see in especially American comic books. Design this brush so it just does that, kind of cutting back and going forward. I'd make like a little part of the reason I want to make a little tutorial that shows kind of how the brushes all work. Yeah, I have like a dummy Gmail account that I tested it out with from one of my other Instagram accounts. It looks like it all worked, so um, I do have a brother who's a really great internet marketer. He's got a business he runs online, but it's not always as much help just because what he does is very different than what I do. Still helps though, but so part of what I'm doing here with this whole image is I want to test out these brushes, make sure I'm seeing what I've learned from the traditional inking, see how that transfers over. rather than trying to hurry things. But that particular email list is just for the brushes, so I set it up so it'll only be for that. It's labeled that so I don't forget on the email app. So like I've got that brush. It's a little bit messy in some of these spots. Like I don't like this over here. And actually, what I might do first, because I tend to like to spot in blacks, is I made these. I call them sumi brushes. So similar to what you know, like the ones you can get in the art supply shop. So I think it's this one. Yeah, that's the one I like the most. I tend to use these a lot when my own inking. Just spotted some, maybe an adjustment I need to make, because I'd like it to be darker when I shrink it. So maybe the, I think there was a setting in here for the texture. So you can adjust its size with scale. That's better. That size. So video over on the Twitch or YouTube side. Not really. I really like setting things up with a Sumi brush. I've got my brush right here, my real live one. There. You know, they're cheap. I like them because they have a different kind of effect. They're kind of floppy. You can dry brush really easy with them. I have a background in learning historical, classical painting, and so I've got things that I've tried out over the years. Also, in my kind of attempts to look at this traditional comic book inking stuff lately, I found out that there's a embargo on Kalinsky's Sable in the United States, which is like the brush of choice for comic book inkers. And I think it's because of the little conflict out in Eastern Europe at the moment. It's the primary source of Kalinsky sable specifically is Russia and China. And by the way, if you want the full screen of my iPad, if you go over to YouTube or Twitch at My Art Professor, all one word, you can check that out there. Very often the Instagram's the better choice, but I like the kind of the liveliness of this brush. And then I can, put the bigger shapes in, and then I can decide where all the details need to go. Starts to make some tea. Yeah, there is the dog cam over on the other ones too, in case you're wondering. So I've got the camera pointed at my sleeping dog who's under the table for one of the cameras, which is always a bonus. One of the things I try to do too is one of the things I found, as a like a personal, failing or misunderstanding is whenever I would do drawings and things or get reference for paintings or illustrations, I'd always try and stick as close as I could to the kind of earlier layers of it. So like the rough or the thumbnail or the comp or the reference even, and try to match that. But what I found kind of freed me up a lot is to treat each phase as its own separate thing. So if there's something I want to change, I don't feel as hesitant about that as I used to. So it lets me, if I'm looking at things like, oh, I can simplify this or move something, that's okay. And that's really easy to do with digital, but you can also do it with traditional if you're doing like a layered step-by-step process. So like if you're doing tracing paper. So the process for doing that, let's see, I think we've got, that's in the other room somewhere else. But basically I have them do a page of abstract shapes that they make with ink. I call them notan blobs. And then they make a viewfinder. Basically, you draw thumbnail rectangles, different sizes or different proportions. So same proportions if you're doing like a specific thing, So my classes, I tend to make them, when I'm doing this, we're doing beat boards or storyboards or something like that. So I'll make them work in 16:9 as a default. It's not, of course, what they use in every movie, but it's generally the cinematic scale. But whatever format you're working in, so like this is a vertical format, right? Um, so they have to do that, and so they draw that same format, different sizes on a piece of tracing paper, and then they extract abstract compositions from that notan blob. So they've made that blob page where they've got positive and negative kind of shapes, and they should be different sizes and spaced differently. You're paying attention to the white shapes you're drawing as much as the black ones. And so they extract them using that viewfinder, and then they use the extractions as the basis for the arrangement of their composition. So they'll do a rectangle like this, and maybe the abstract composition that they extract, looks something like this. And, if you were to look at the whole ink page, it would continue on and be different things outside of it. But they just take this part, and then they can look at that and they say, okay, maybe this is background, and it could be something, this is the foreground, there's a character or a monster or something over here, or vice versa. Maybe this is, the white part is a tree, and you're looking through it and seeing the landscape behind it. So it could be a number of different things, but and usually have a subject too. So we've been working on things like, for example, when I taught it at Ringling, they had to make a scene using isometric perspective. So they would create 3 buildings and then a courtyard. And the buildings were designed around a letter form and a specific architectural style. So, like I had a student from Hong Kong, and so she did hers based off of kind of typical contemporary Hong Kong architecture. Or I had a student from Spain, he did his based off of Barcelona architecture. And then, whatever letter forms they wanted. And then they had to redraw that isometric layout using different perspective types they'd learned during the semester. And then they would use the notan stuff as a way of setting it up. And they did a similar thing in the figure class in the spring, where they had to illustrate a song or a poem. They always went with songs because that's what most people know. And had to do certain kinds of shots, but they had to base all their shot compositions on this notan arrangement that they'd picked. I did a similar thing with my students here now at Virginia Commonwealth University. With some beat boards from a concept project that they're working on, since I'm teaching a concept design drawing class. Course for the isometric stuff is actually up on my teaching site. I don't remember if I included anything from it in the free stuff. If you DM me the word lessons, it'll send you an email for a different email list that's got, I've had that one for a while, so it should work still, I think. It'll give you some free lessons there that you can see if you want to try it out, but you can also just get on there and get a subscription, which I think doesn't charge you for the first week or 2. It's been a while. I need to go look and see how that's set up. Moving and then a bunch of other things kind of kept me away from those online projects. But because of the pandemic, I turned a lot of, I didn't have to, but I turned a lot of my course material into online stuff. Ringling actually doesn't like online materials as for some of the professors do, but the admin there, people in charge, they don't want any online stuff for Ringling at all. And so going online during the pandemic was a big deal for them. But as part of that, I was like, rather than like demoing online to, a bunch of postage stamp faces on Zoom, as I made video content. And the students would work on the demos and the activities from that, and then I would meet with them to critique their work and correct it. And it was really, really helpful. I was surprised I got really good results out of this online experiment. And but because of that, I have all this video material, so I've been gradually turning this fall that fall perspective class into online content. And then I've got more stuff for the figure drawing stuff too that I haven't gotten to. But that's all there on that teaching site. I'm looking at maybe charging for individual access to courses there, but I have to like spend more time looking at that, and I've been having a good time drawing. These are a part of a brush pack I'm making. So I've got these ink brushes I've been making over here. And these ones you get for free. I think this one's right here is similar to this one. Yeah. So you actually get this one for free, or one like it, as part of this free stuff. So if you type brush into the comments, it'll send you a DM that'll get you on the email list that will send you a link to that free beta set. And then when I release the full set, I'll email everybody about that, and there'll be like a early pricing deal for it. So it's a custom brush for Infinite Painter. Infinite Painter uses a different file format for their brush library, though I think you can import ABRs, which is what Photoshop uses, and you can import into Procreate. But it's still not quite the it doesn't export ABRs, otherwise I would do that and just have it available for Photoshop and Procreate and for this one. And there are some unique brushes again, brush types that they have in here that you won't find in Photoshop or Procreate, at least not yet, as far as I know. That's one of the reasons I switched to using this app, was some of these unique brush types that they have in here. So while I've done some stuff for the company that makes this app, I bought the app a long time before they ever talked to me. So I presented a Lightbox for them online a couple years ago. And then before that I did a little promo project. I was doing a bunch of spaceships in this app, and so they hired me to make one for them too, which was fun. Something I was doing anyway, right? So I might as well get paid for it. But once I finish this set, I'll try and make it again for Procreate and Photoshop. Or maybe just make it for Photoshop and then you can import it into Procreate. I just want to make sure it kind of works the same. But again, some of the brushes don't really translate perfectly. I can make a version that kind of works, but it's it's the especially the shape drawing brushes that they have work differently than other apps do. I think, like I said, I was saying before to people, Clip Studio has this type of fill brush. It's basically like working in. I can show you. It's like working in like using a selection tool, but it draws a color instead or a shape that has a pattern in it. So, but I'm calling this my one of my Sumi brushes, which I've been playing around with a lot lately. I actually like Sumi brushes for gouache painting, if that person's still around. It has a nice kind of flaying, it kind of splays out really easily. It's very loose, so you have to kind of work very light with it. Otherwise, it collapses. It's not very stiff. So it forces a kind of, I think, light touch that I like a lot. I was originally planning to hurry through this piece, but then I was like, I want to try some things out, slow it down, really pack it with an unhelpful amount of detail. And test out these brushes. So that's kind of the thing we're doing here. All right, let's get these downward facing planes. Like this brush I'm using right here, I could probably, I think I have something similar already in Procreate that I've made before. What we got going on for the curious. Good afternoon. Have a good night. Alright, let's try. You gotta get your sleep in, right? Nothing more important than to a Mediterranean European. Good afternoon. Well, looks like we've got a bot over in Twitch. Get rid of that. Excuse me. I guess it's good to know the Twitch chat works. Oh. Curiosity, anybody here use Threads? No. I had a conversation with a rep from Instagram talking about ways to improve engagement, and it's pretty short, little talk, but she was saying I should look into Threads. I don't know why they didn't just make it like a feature of Instagram, but I put them together into one. But I wasn't sure what people's experience over there is like. I haven't tried it. I hate chasing every new social media app. It's like I have a TikTok, but I just have it just because I want to get my full name on there. I've never really used it. But like I was on that program on Instagram where you got paid for doing reels. And I did. I never got very much money off of it, but it was interesting to see reels. So never put any effort into getting good at them. Good afternoon, everybody. Popping in. So, grab. Actually, let's grab you. Get some accent lines on things to block brush. Yeah. So some of the value stuff and whatnot will happen in the color. So lately I've been looking at a lot of kind of older um, comics. And I really like that old kind of flat color. So I think about mixing this up with the flats and then um, the screen tones. See how they work together. But just let me know how those brushes work out for you. I'm always curious to see what people do with the things I put out there. Cool. Yeah. 5 o'clock, huh? I'll probably stick around for another hour. I need you to set up a schedule. What I think we're going to do is I'm going to use the same brush. Use it to erase out a few things. Just to simplify, open up some of the shapes a little bit. Good afternoon. Everybody popping in. Oh, good. Yeah, they should just, be the same for everybody. But, I can test things out for myself and say, okay, everything works. But, it's always good to know that other people have an easy time getting access and using everything. Yeah, it should be the line brush, the Sumi brush, and I think one of the screen tone brushes. Sad concept. Welcome aboard. Good afternoon. That area later on. Let's fix up this selection with our solid. Excuse me. Actually, just getting over being quite sick. So I have a little bit of a lingering cough, but otherwise I'm fine. Certainly better than it was yesterday or the day before that. Oh, I forgot to draw the sword. Let's do that. Or the hilt, rather, and the handle. I usually do like a local color thing. The grayscale I'm using right now is just so I make sure I'm separating out areas. So it won't be necessarily this when it's done. It's just there to help me know where everything is inside the picture. So that's all it really does for me at this phase. So I'll do them in different values just to help me see. Right, make sure I know everybody's at. So I have different ones for different areas, but it's really just there to help with that. Get them all. Let's see. So I got this little spot there. This is from the last version. I did inking on top of it, but I decided to step back and do some more drawing before I inked. Okay, there. So I think we'll jump into this next area down. That's the little inking there. How about we go? Sorry, that was my old test there. We're going to move you up to there. This down one more. We're too light in that one. Let's turn our perspective. Excuse me. We're going to be another 10-ish minutes or so, and then take out the dog for his afternoon constitutional. And you're just kind of sketching out all the easy straight lines. Before I jump into the it's interesting. It's in the same spot. But I let's draw that. All right, fix it. Yeah, the this is Infinite Painter, and other applications they do have the perspective grids, like using Clip Studio or Procreate. This one work. There was one here actually works a little bit differently though. Like you can draw a shape in here, like a circle. I can grab the circle tool here. If I just draw following the perspective line, like a vertical right here, if I draw down, it'll draw that circle accurately inside the perspective space. And you can move it around and it'll change its size based off of where you put it. Or if we go this way, so it'll adjust its scale and the shape of that ellipse depending on where it is in the perspective space. Nobody else does that, so that's one of the reasons I really like this one, is that some of the features like that. The other one I really like in here is when you draw a shape like this, it'll smooth it out and lock it. And in Procreate, you have to tap a button to change it. And this one, you just tap the shape, and you can move it around. You can also add points into it and change them into angles or curves, depending on what you want to do. So you can get a little dance on the line here, right? So nobody else does that too. Especially the tapping just on the shape. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine with the other ones where you have to like tap something else to edit it, or like in Photoshop you have to go through a whole process of creating the shapes and then keeping them as vectors so you can edit them or whatever, which I don't like. But yeah, so I've just been dropping all the major perspective lines into this area of the drawing. Now I can come back in and work on it. That a little bigger. And then the brushes I'm using, I'm making an ink brush set for this app. And if you want a few of the beta brushes, you type the word brush as a comment, it'll have a bot that'll DM you and get your email address and send you a link to download a few of the beta brushes for this brush set. And then when I release it, I'll email you about the release. There'll be some kind of early bird pricing for it. Yeah, so the app, I think it's free to try the app if you want to download it on, I think it's on Android and on iPad and iPhone. But they use their own format for their brushes because they do some different things with them than you can actually do in Photoshop or Procreate or whatever. And then I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks to actually buy the app. I should pester them, see if they'll give me a discount code because I use their stuff all the time. It's not as well known, but I think it's really great. You know, it's, should I do a whole demo about the app with the makers? Yeah, they have it on. It is on Android. It's Infinite Painter. I'm not sure, how it compares to the iPad one because I don't use Android, but uh, but I think they all work the same. Ah, any good? Yeah, I'm surprised Procreate's never gone over to Android at all. I know they've been busy with that Dreams app they made for animation, which I'd try out. This one is a fun thing too. Like you can customize the interface. Like I can grab my color palette, 2 fingers, and I can bring it out, leave it where I want to, shrink it, make it bigger, which is nice. And then you can also like add things. So at the top, um, I've got some tools over here, and you just drag them out and put them up there when you want that where you want them. So if I want to grab the circle one, I can put it up here. Now it's up there. Let's see, why did that jump off of the top though? There it goes. Now it's back. So if I ever want the circle, I can just grab it out of there, out of the top. So it's got some nice features like that where you can customize how it works. I do think you have to drag the color picker out every time though. I use them all. I haven't used Procreate as much in the last few years, but definitely. I should try out Android sometime though, because I always feel weird when someone hands me an Android phone. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know how it works. It's one of those, weird things. Yeah. Hey, one thing that Apple has been really exceptional with is kind of the ecosystem they build with their applications. Adobe's been getting better at that as well with their stuff. How the Creative Cloud all kind of integrates together with all the other applications. So if you're using video or whatever, or Photoshop and Illustrator, everything kind of updates really well together. Um, so getting dark. Yeah, it is a lot easier, I think, to draw in other applications. There is a lot of like really handy things you can do in Photoshop. I don't like any of the AI stuff, but that's me. But the way it integrates other things, and then it has some unique features. Like there's a recent thing for people pointing out, you can make these asset files in Photoshop and then use them to do kind of live 3D environments that are painted in Blender. I was messing around with that a while ago. I haven't. There's too many things that I want to do, but Andrew Theophilopoulos did a tutorial on Gumroad that's pretty thorough. And you just can't do that with other applications. Like you can be literally painting in Photoshop and it will show you kind of painting it over in Blender, which is really cool. So that kind of specified integration is really great. But yeah, but just for pure drawing though, like uh, iPad mobile options are really really great now. There's those file size limitations and things like that. They're not not as bad as they used to be, but if you wanted to work over a certain size, you would have real trouble on an iPad. Less so now, but even bringing ZBrush to the iPad, I don't know what it'll be like, if it'll be a full blown version or not. But there's also Nomad Sculpt that I like a lot that's on the iPad. And it's really great for like basic sculpting. So many options. Have a good one. I'm probably going to shut off here in a couple minutes anyway. Need to WALK the dog and then make some dinner. Honestly, don't mind just like popping on here to work either way. I've got it all kind of set up, so it's just mostly turning it on, remembering to use the right stuff. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pause here, and we'll catch everybody next time.